A remarkable young player. Taysom, 3 years out of BYU in the NFL. You're the next quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. 20 years ago, this league would never have given you a shot.
Yep.
Do you believe you were born at the right time and you came to the right place?
Absolutely. You know, I think, look, I've always been a fan of like Lamar Jackson and seeing these guys in college, but you know, I pay closer attention now, you know, and to see Lamar have the season that he did, I think Patrick Mahomes has changed things with his ability to make plays happen. Like, you know, that has been a really big thing for me. And, you know, being in New Orleans with Coach Payton, I don't know that anyone else would have been as creative with me as he has been. And, you know, it's really been a perfect, you know, situation for me.
You had in 1 year over 100 passing yards, rushing yards, and receiving yards. It's never been done. Only NFL player to do that. You faced the 49ers defense.
Yeah.
It looks different. You've been hit by it.
Yep.
Talk about in some detail, Taysom, when you prepared for them. Is there a little weakness? Are there things you have to avoid against the 49ers defense?
Well, absolutely. You know, I think that front seven is as good a front seven in football, you know, or frankly that I've played in my time, you know, in the NFL. I think if you look at that game of ours, I think a lot of that is, you know, goes to Coach Payton and his creativity, but we had a really good offensive game.
You really did
against those guys, and I think we paid really close, you know, attention to detail and how we protect every single play. You know, we had a very specific game plan of like, hey, I'm going to call this play at this time so we can chip both ends at the same time, and there was a plan in place to make sure that, you know, Bosa was getting chipped on every single play, so he wasn't in the backfield.
I was going to say, you guys, actually both teams, it was a wild shootout. Brees is not a mover. I mean, he's athletic, but he's not a runner. Mahomes is. They did struggle with Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. You know, I know you've watched Mahomes on TV. Do you think it's an advantage facing the Niners with a mobile quarterback?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think as a defensive rusher, and I haven't been in their shoes, but if you know there's a threat that a guy's going to escape and leave the pocket, I think it's more difficult for you to just pin your ears back and rush. I think it's a little more two-gap, you know, as a defensive end or defensive tackle to make sure that you contain that guy. And so I think it's an advantage for them. I think, you know, you get to the Super Bowl and you just let it all hang out. So I would suspect that Patrick Mahomes will probably do a little more running this week than what he's done in the past.
By the way, you went from Provo, Utah to New Orleans. That is the strangest geographical and ideological transition in NFL history, and yet you love New Orleans.
Yeah, I love it. Look, if you look at New Orleans, there's not a lot to not love. You know, as you look at our fan base, and you know, since the second I got there, man, I have felt so much love from this fan base. Where you know, you can't go out on the street without running into fans. They're like, I love you, you know, and then they all show up. So if you go to the game, like everyone's loud, everyone's cheering, and it is, you know, it's a religion down there, Saints football.
How much do you learn? You know, you don't want to be nosy, and you know, Drew. Oh, listen, there's an old joke. You can't have two quarterbacks in the same room. You know, like it's the only position in football.
Yeah.
You know, a college recruits 6 corners or
yeah.
D ends a year. You recruit one quarterback, or the other one transfers. How do you build a relationship with Drew, knowing you may replace him?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's worked because Drew is who he is. And look, I have been extremely nosy to Drew, but he's welcomed it. You know, so I adopted his routine. I go in early with him. I stay late with him. I pick his brain. Like, he has opened up everything to me, and I've done my best that I can to adopt it all.
Taysom Hill, what was the first thing he did? And you've played high school, college, BYU, you played. Was there a moment early that you were like, he's different?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I saw him prepare for a game the first time, my first week there, we were playing the Minnesota Vikings Monday Night Football in 2017. I watched him prepare for that game, and I was floored. I've never experienced anything like it.
Why?
Well, so this was, year 17 for him at this time. And so I went in with this expectation that, like, okay, Drew's been doing this for 16 years, going into his 17th season. There's not a defense he hasn't faced. There's not a scheme that he hasn't faced. He knows the offense like the back of his hand. Like, what does this guy have to prepare for? And he would go in before anyone else. He would stay later than anybody else. And he prepared like no one else had ever been around. So to me, as a rookie, I was like, well, if Drew's doing this, who's a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best to ever do it, like, man, I better pay attention, and I better do what he's doing.
When Taysom Hill joining us for the New Orleans Saints, when you were drafted out of BYU, and I remember it, you're a player that you're athletic enough to make it, but it doesn't mean you make the roster because of fit. Where were you sitting, standing, driving when you were told Sean Payton, the smartest offensive guy, he and Andy Reid wanted you on the team? Do you remember the moment?
Yeah. Well, I was actually in the Green Bay Packers facility because they wanted me there so they could sign me to the practice squad right when everything was finished with waiver wire and everything else. And I got a call from Coach, and he said, "Hey, man, it's Coach Payton. Super excited. I just claimed you. Like, you're going to be a New Orleans Saint. We're going to get you flown down here today." And I'm fired up about it. So I remember it like it was yesterday.
That's great. And for the record, you catch, you run, you quarterback. What's the most, simplistic question, what's the most fun?
Well, I would say I'm a quarterback at heart, and my vision for myself is to play quarterback. I believe in my ability as a quarterback, and that's, the end goal for me. So when I'm back playing quarterback, like that's what's most fun for me.
Taysom, when you're running on the field, I asked Russell Wilson this. You're innate. You have an innate sense of moving in between people. How much is it? You were a basketball player.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I watch you, it's like a fast break.
Yeah.
Your peripheral vision. Like, can you sense I'm going to get tagged here? Do you know you're going to get hit? Because I don't think you can teach what you or Russell Wilson do. I just think it's. Did you develop that early?
Yeah, I think that's a fair look, and I feel the same way. I grew up playing multiple positions. I think naturally as you start Little League, they kind of just throw the best athlete at quarterback. Well, when I was in Little League, my coach was like, "No, we're going to run the ball, so I'm putting you at running back." And so I played running back one of my first years in Little League, and then if we wanted to throw the ball, it was a halfback pass. And so I think that was one of the things that I always did growing up, and it was early, and it's something that I just feel really comfortable doing.
Tunnel, Tonal, it's your T-shirt, the world's most technologically intelligent home gym and personal trainer. By the way, what are you doing? And we got a minute left. In the off season, I know you hang out in a place I do in Utah. We're going to do some golfing. For an athlete like you, what is your off season? When does it start? 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, Tonal is one of those companies that helps me stay in shape, during the off season. It's an artificial intelligence system, weight system that's all in home. It's an incredible technology, but I pay really close attention to what I do in the off season. I lift a lot of weights. I lift really heavy. I will squat heavy. I will clean pull heavy. Like, that stuff is really important to me. That helps me feel like I get ready for the season.
So my 30-pound curls aren't doing squat for me. Is what you're. Come on, I'm 55. I do 35-pound curls, bosses.
Hey,
what do you want from me?
You got to start somewhere, You got to start somewhere.
That hurt. That hurt, Taysom. Hey, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Just saw Sean Payton the other night at a Fox party. It was absolutely great. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.